Hello everyone, welcome to this video about socket programming in Java. My name is Minkan Zor from Hackalizer team. Today we're going into the basic usage of a socket module from Java language. Since as you know, Java is a rich language with a lot of modules and data types, which happens to be also an OOP language, which is an object-oriented programming language. So if you have some background on OOP languages and other scripting languages, you could possibly relate to this video a lot more than other things. I could assume that you know some concept of scripting or programming. So, what, uh, who is this video intended for? This video is intended for network and system administrators with some Java backgrounds, individual with keen interest on network-based programmers, computer science, and any IT students. As long as you can understand the video, I encourage you to uh, go forward and I hope that you learn something from the video. So what are the requirements? The requirements are simple. You have some. I'm assuming that you have some knowledge for knowledge of Java and or some scripting languages. As long as you can understand the importing of modules and using some of the data types in other programming languages, I hope I can clear it up for you. So I hope you can follow along with the video. And we'll also put in some links for the context and stuff if you have some questions. And we assume that you know how the IDE works or the basic IDE which are popular among the programmers because we're going to be using Eclipse for this tutorial. And basic networking, of course, at least the OSI7 layer and how the connection get established and stuff. So Java network sockets. Let's explore what a socket is. A socket is a one endpoint. A socket is a one endpoint of a two-way connection link between two programs running on a network. Socket is bound to a port number so that TCP layer can identify the application that data is to be destined to be sent to. So basically, a socket is basically an initiator of the connection where one node to the other is if one node to the other is connected, the data can be shared between those two nodes, or there can be some kind of calculation in our scenario. So this I got this kind of scenario from Oracle website. It's pretty simple. Uh, the server listens on a specific port number. I assume you already know what a port number is. And when the client make kind of a request to the server, and a server accept the connection, and when they both acknowledge the connection, when a connection is established, they both send a data or do some kind of a calculation. uh, they do a function that is predestined to do in a program. Of course, that's happened a lot in networking. Client connecting to a server. It is pretty simple. It's a pretty simple network. I hope network connection. I hope that you see what my program does clearly when I'm doing the coding. Okay. So moving on, there are three types of socket: connection-oriented TCP socket, connection-like UDP socket. A third type is a multi-socket and multicast socket class. So socket class for HTTP and HTTPS, which you use every day pretty much. It's a TCP/IP class. It's used with a module called socket, and I'll use it in our programming tutorial. So I hope it clears it up for you. The connectionless UDP sockets are used for protocols initiating connection for protocols such as FTP and DHCP, which exists on 2021 68 port numbers, and it is imported and used as a datagram socket. And third type is a multicast socket class. Well, this is a little bit simple. Some people find it confusing, but it's just a datagram socket class. It's part of a subset of a datagram socket class. It is mostly used for um, it is mostly designed to be used for sniffing and other kind of protocol that you can modify with third party application. And it is very open source. It can be pretty much manipulated in a way that user wants it to be used. So this is the scenario that we're doing today. The server waits for the client's connection, and when the clients connect and clients import a set of number, and the server does a simple calculation, which in my scenario I'm going to multiply it with two and return it to the client. And we're going to be using four data types and I want you to know with get input stream, get output stream, which we use to get the data from the server and client, and the server socket, which we used to establish, sorry, we used to listen on a port number, and the socket, which we used to create a socket to connect to the server, and print stream object, which we use with in coordinates with get output and get input stream in order to get data or push data to the client or server. So let's go to the programming basics of how we can implement this scenario in Java. First, we need to create a new project, and the new project we will use the name SRC1 since I've already used SRC for some other project. In this case, I'm using a Java Eclipse SDK, which is pretty much available for everyone. And okay, and we will create a new project and we'll click finish. That's RC1. We'll create a new class, and in the new class, we'll name it uh, JServer, uh, JServer, and finish. Okay, and we'll create another class for the client, JClient, finish. So there are going to be two packages for our basic tutorial. Since I think you already know from the name that this is going to be a client and a server connection. So I want you guys to go ahead and look at the tutorial from the client, because the client is a little bit sophisticated compared to the server, because what server does is basically calculating and putting out the data, not uh, it's not sophisticated in sense of programming. So I want to start off with the client, and I hope it's much simpler for you guys. Simplify. And the reason I use the Eclipse SDK is that SDK is because Eclipse basically fill you in with all kind of modules and in packages that you need to import based on the program you're writing. It's very assistive with the program that you're going to write. So first we do, of course, we will create a class called JClient according to the name, and we'll of course create a main class called static void main. Uh, I hope you already know that this is a basic requirement in the Java code. So string args and okay. So we've created a class now. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an input from the user. So I will say scanner maybe s sc equal to new scanner uh, system dot in. So when I'm getting an input from the user, and so as you see, it gives me a kind of a prompt or an error. So you have to input a scanner, java.util.scanner. From that package comes the scanner object, and I've basically created a scanner to get an input from the user, and this is needed because we're going to get a number from the user and pass it into the server so the server can do a calculation. And we're going to create uh, a socket. Uh, okay, let's call it n. We create a new socket object by using socket, calling a socket. Uh, we need to import socket class, java.net.socket. A socket is socket and the name of the object, and a new and socket socket. Basically, on the client, this the address that we want to connect on. So the server is going to be on the same host. So we use 127.0.0.1. This is basically for newcomers. This is basically the local host of address for connection. So since the server is on the same machine as the client machine, we're going to be using 127.0.0.1. For the port number, you can set anything in the range from 1 to over 60,000. So I'm going to be using 500,097 50097 to avoid conflict with any of the services running on my computer. So we have basically created a socket class, a socket object, which will connect to 127.0.0.1 on 50097, and which will accept on the server later. And we'll also create a an object to receive the answer from the server. So we have to create it with the scanner class, and as I've said in the in the former part of the video, that we will be using a scanner class and in coordinates with input stream. So we'll be receiving it from the object and we'll say get input stream. So it also, and the terminator, of course. Um, we have to so as you know, Java is a very delicate language. Sometimes it needs throws, a lot of throws and catch, exception handling, so that so that the compiler can avoid an error, the IDE can avoid, in this case the IDE can avoid an error based on the input of the user. So we are prompted to add an throw declaration. I simply suggest you guys to do that. Add throw declaration, the unknown host exception and IO exception, which are basically included in these packages, IO exception and unknown host exception, and basically makes your life a lot easier. That's what I like about the Eclipse IDE. So we have already created a get input stream object to get a data back from the server. Uh, so I will create so what I'm basically going to do next is I'm going to say system dot out dot print ln, which will prompt user, which is basically a message to uh, prompt user to enter any number, since we're getting a number from the user. And we're going to say int, we're going to say, okay, input. It's one of the prohibited word lists, so I'm going to use for example, temp1 equal to sc, which is a scanner object here, which is the scanner object here, sc dot next, since it's an integer. We haven't declared temp1, so I'm going to do initiation here. You can either do it on the same line as, or we can move up here and say int temp1. It's basically your choice. So after that, since we've already gotten the input from the user, we'll have to pass it to the server using a print stream object. We'll create a print stream object, calling it p, and say new, since we're creating an object, and stream, print stream. And since we're going to be passing it to the server uh, from our we're going to pass in temp1 to the user. We're going to say we're going to be using the socket n to pass it. So n dot get output stream, and we'll say okay, we are prompted to input the print stream, which is in the java io dot print stream Basically, there's a trick to solve every problem. We have to import java.io and say star to import everything. But I suggest you don't use that little trick because it basically makes your program um, a lot more heavier and it's sophisticated. And for the sake of the tutorial, I'm putting every packages to show that each of the data types and object exists under these packages. Um, so we will pass it on to the server using p.println. So we basically telling the server that, hey, this is the number that you're going to be using. You're expecting this number from us. Um, so that's it. We already passed the number, and so I'm going back to the server, and I'm creating. So let's see, public class chaser, just the name of the file, uh, and public static main main void, uh, or void main, whichever, void main, and string string args. As you see, I love using the Eclipse IDE for the tutorials because it makes prompts out the errors and makes your life a lot easier for the people who are learning programming and approaching the unknown field of networking and programming. Um, so what we're going to do is we're going to wait for a connection, listen on a specific part. As I said on the slides, we're going to be using a server socket type to listen to the connection, and we're going to call it S1. Since it's an object, we're going to create an object called new socket. And let's go back to the client and look at the port that we're connecting to, 50097. So we're going to say, hey, we're going to be waiting for a connection on 50097. Hope we knock. So this is basically waiting for a connection, waiting for an attempt of knock from the Java client. So we'll be waiting for a connection, and we have to import, of course, Java socket class, which is under also java.net. And we have to add a throw declaration. Uh, so and we're going to accept the connection as it try to connect us. So we're going to say, okay, socket ss equal to s1 dot accept. So there are a lot of data types that you can explore if you're after you know the basic concept of networking with Java. You can explore accept. You can explore other data types such as timeout. And a lot of packages can be found under that socket object. So socket method. Um, so as I was saying, we are passing on the data. We are passing on the data into the server using get output stream. So we're gonna listen to this. We're gonna listen to the client from the server. So we're gonna create an object, listener object from the client, and say scanner, which is also a scanner, by the way. And we're gonna use for listening. We're gonna use get input stream from the client. We're gonna get input stream from the client, and we are going to say, okay, we were using. I think we're using temp1 here, which doesn't matter because it's on a different file. So I will also be using. Oh yeah, I'll be using temp1 for to pass it into the. So I'll see dot next int. I'll use this variable which I just initiated and to store the data from the from this object that I created on the scanner. So basically what I'm doing here is that I'm using this ss.get input stream, which will receive data from the client, in with this object, and I'm basically saying, hey, I want to put that data into data that I received from the client into temp1. So so we've basically done that. What here is calculation. We're going to do the calculation. So I suggest that you try to be creative and do your own kind of calculation, which here temp1. Okay, for example, temp2 is going to be another variable that we're going to use. Uh, so temp1. Um, you can do division, you can do multiplication, you can, if you're even creative now, you can even prompt the user and ask the functions, which will uh, which would be probably a lot more creative if you try it on your own. But since we're focusing on getting the data from the client and processing it into the server and returning it to the client, we won't go much into that. um, so we've basically done the calculation and of the temp1 that we received from the client and stored into temp2. And we're going to create another print stream object to, to pass it into the client in order to show the result. Of course, which we'll call it P, I guess, new print stream, and access dot get output stream. So since we're going to pass it into the client, we're using output stream. This is receiving from the client, just passing into the client, and we're gonna this is just simply an object, so we're gonna pass it using p dot println uh, temp uh, which is the calculated one. So we're going back to the client. So what's left with the client is that we have we basically passed to the server using using get output stream. But what we haven't done is we haven't received the calculation from the server. So we're going to receive the calculation from the server and going to store it. So we're going to be creating another variable to store the data we're going to create we're going to receive from the server. So we're going to be using initializing the temp2, and we're going to use excuse me, we're going to use the object sc1, the scanner one, remember, that we have created here to receive from the to receive from the server. So sc1 dot next int scanner object. So we basically got the data and put it into temp2. So what we're going to do is we're going to print it out. Sorry. Okay. So save for the files. So let's see if our programs run. So what we have to do is we have to run the server first, because we have to be listening in order for the client to connect us. So run it, and hopefully it doesn't give us any error. Then run the client. So enter any number. So 5333. So as you see, it returns it multiplies your number with 2 and return the enter here. So we can try out different functions such as division, for example. So server is basically a so so you basically divide your number. So it's basically server as a calculator and the client receives the data back. So thank you for I hope you get everything that I said here. And this is my very first one of my very first tutorials, and I hope you connect to a Hectolizer and stay connected. We are on Facebook. We'll, we're also on a YouTube, and we hope that you check out other several videos that we're working on. We're also going to do a lot of other videos on Java and Java programming, networking with Java, and we'll explore data types and other data types, evolving the client and server connection on next videos. This is basically episode one. Thank you for supporting us, and enjoy.